Gemma couldn't find her pulse. She sat in the clearing, a faint ringing in her ears, clutching her chest tightly until it faded. Her body ached. It anchored her to the crisp grass, despite the setting sun. She expected the cold to creep up her legs, to cast her into the dark forest with sharp claws. Nothing. Neither cold nor warmth came to her. Gemma fought past the pain to rise unsteadily to her feet. Her toes felt the scorched grass. She scanned around for her. Gemma thought for a moment. Something should have been there, though she couldn't tell herself what. All she remembered was the clearing. She shook it off before stumbling across the ground, which smacked her across her face as she landed. She blew away the dirt from her face. That low to the ground, Gemma found questions to be her only companions. Why am I in pain? How did I get here? Gemma bolted back to her feet. What was that sound? A raspy wind rose and fell in the forest. Its wheezing breath came from all around her. "Hello?" she called out, lost for anything else to do. The sound came to a sharp halt with a distorted bell. A door creaked behind her. From the forest emerged a man with short black hair, dressed in a battered suit jacket, a pocket watch chain dangling from his crimson waistcoat. His eyes brightened when he caught sight of her. "Lovely night for a stroll, is it?" he called out, a coldness in his voice. Gemma backed away. "Don't come closer," the man stopped. "It's all right, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm the doctor, just out for a walk." He eyed the scorch marks in the clearing. "What about you?" Gemma's back bumped against a tree. With the shock of the impact fueling her, she dashed into the forest, following an instinctual path. The doctor's voice carried through the trees, urging her to come back. As she turned back to see if he followed, Gemma's foot caught on a stray root, sending her tumbling back to the ground inches away from an old wooden sign. Gemma laid there. She waited for the pain to subside, enough to launch herself away. As she rose, the faded writing on the sign caught her attention. "Do not travel alone." "Wise words," came the doctor's voice, looming over her. She grasped her dry throat. "Nothing, just looking around. What brings you out here so late?" "Have you seen Jane?" The doctor extended a hand to her. "Who's that?" Gemma waved the hand away, gritting her teeth as she stood to face him eye to eye. She paused. "I'm not sure." "We can of course look for her together. What's your name?" Gemma," she sputtered. "Gemma Steele." "What a lovely name, Miss Steele. I'll be glad to help you out the forest." He gestured to Gemma's feet. "And find you some shoes." "Boots," Gemma corrected. "I think I had boots before I came here." She peered through the trees towards the clearing, no longer in sight, but the presence of which still held strong in Gemma's mind. "What do you see?" the doctor asked in little more than a whisper. "Gemma, are you running from someone?" She nodded. "Must be." The doctor plucked a small metal rod from his jacket. The green orb sitting at its tip buzzed for a moment, facing Gemma before the doctor examined the tip. A frown flickered on his round features. "How are you feeling, Miss Stone?" "In pain," she replied. "All of me aches, but I'm not sure why." "Miss Stone?" "Yes?" The doctor sighed deeply, gave her a smile before gesturing to the sign. "Do you know why that's there?" Gemma shook her head. "Signs like these are scattered all around this forest to warn people." She deflated. "You see, the husk is easier to deal with in groups." Gemma's senses muffled the forest. The doctor continued to speak, but she took none of it in, wandering off further into the woods. Husk. The word oozed down her form. When she muttered it, the sound stung. A hand on her shoulder brought her back to reality. "Are you all right, Mrs. Slate?" Gemma brushed her hand away. Sorry, I just spaced out there for a moment." A memory clipped into place. "Space! I have a ship! I was on my way somewhere when I crashed here. No wonder I'm in pain." Excitement got in her. The ship's black box should have survived. It could have sent her a message to be saved. But what about the husk? The word strangled her head in an iron-tight grip. When she cast her mind back, trying to find the image for it, husk dug in deeper with sharp claws. "You're a pilot?" the doctor asked after a pause. Gemma's pain eased. Yes, I must be. I have to call my wife. She'll be so worried." "Gemma, look at your clothes." She chuckled nervously at the doctor's grave tone, still feeling a spark of hope for her wife. Gemma hesitantly looked down at her clothes. Her smile soured while the doctor paced around her. Rags. Her clothes were simple, coloured with dirt and time. A hand-stitched green bee held the only colour on her outfit. It sat there, alien against the tattered cloth. "I don't understand." Gemma looked back at the doctor. "What's wrong with my clothes? Lady Bates gave this to me when she found me." "Well, what did he give your husband?" "Oh, I'm not married." For a second, her vision became clouded. The doctor stopped pacing. "Deep breaths, Gemma. Remember what I was saying?" He tapped his head. "Husks can affect your mind. It's how they attack, you see. There's still one in the forest. And do you know, we have to run!" Gemma Slate bolted past the strange man. At first, she chose directions at random, still aware of the doctor calling out after her. Then, in the shadows, a glinting light marked her way. She sped towards it, bounding off trees that got in her way. Gemma emerged in another clearing. Stone statues stood in rows, all facing her. The young, the old, the human, the humanoid, the clearing held statues for each example that sprang to Gemma's mind. She checked over her shoulder. Nothing. In the centre of the clearing stood a pillar with a brilliant blue flame burning on top. It danced amidst the evening breeze. Gemma stepped towards it, mesmerised by its swift grace in a clearing of cold glares. She ran her hand along the pillar, feeling the raised letters that covered the fine midnight black stone. Gemma took in the musk of the pillar with a deep breath. It smelt of home. While she was unsure what exactly home was, the writing warmed her to her core, sending cool chills down her back as she traced them with her finger. Despite the sombre expressions around her, Gemma couldn't help but grin. The letters coated the pillar from top to bottom. She tried to read it, but the jumbled letters refused to get in line. The soft touch of petals beneath her feet stopped her as she circled the pillar. Gemma found them scattered around the statue directly behind the pillar. She examined it carefully. Human, a mirror image of its subject, as all the statues tried to be. Gemma looked down on the figure of a small child, a stone bear clutched in its fingers. Time hadn't damaged the statue long, the ground still moist from being turned up. Gemma felt the urge to pat the child's head. "Jane?" "June, but close." Gemma snapped round. The doctor's wide, wandering gaze followed the rows of statues to her. "She was the latest to be taken," he explained. As his gaze rested on Gemma, it turned to ice. "Welcome, Gemma, to the Garden of the Lost." Gemma's eyes drifted down to the podium the child stood on. It read, "June Powell, 3072 BD. "Is that the year?" "Yes. What do you make of it?" It's wrong. It should be AD. "That's more of an old Earth system." "Aren't we on Earth?" "Gemma," his words oozed out expectantly, "what do you remember?" "Remember?" She glared at the man, suddenly feeling smaller. The doctor ran a hand through his hair. "This may not be the easiest thing to explain, and for that you have my deepest sympathies, but it would be cruel to let you live in a fantasy." "Fantasy?" Gemma stumbled back, clinging on to a statue. The vision of the doctor standing before her swirled, whispers chittering around him, conversations Gemma half recognised. Her voice echoed around her, a new one uttering sentences she mimed along with as much as she could. Gemma dropped to her knees. Her hands shot to her ears, trying to drown the voices out. She ground her teeth together. "It's all right, child. The real world can be harsh, but it is beautiful nonetheless. I'm not a child. Gemma growled in a mix of pain and anger. How old are you? Older than I have any right to be, but no less a child in the eyes of the universe. She looked at him, the voices dying out as she focused on his outstretched hand. The doctor had bent down to her level with a warm smile. Her eyes eased to his side as the pair rose together to their feet. The doctor caught her as she stumbled. Whispers surrounded them while he led her back through the forest. Gemma Stone, Gemma Steel, Gemma Salt, Gemma Sea, the doctor muttered. Only one of those is my name. Which one? Gemma's blood ran cold. I'm not. It's all right. All of them, in a way, belong to you. She fell silent through the forest. With each step, the voices faded. The crowd of whispers whittled down to a single voice, identical to her own, asking for mercy, crying out for someone out there to find her. It disappeared as the doctor led Gemma back to the clearing he had found her, gesturing to the scorch marks. Do you see those? Gemma nodded. What can you tell me about them? They hurt? Oh? How so? Gemma let go of the doctor. She dropped to the grass around the scorch marks before hovering her hand over it. As she stroked it, a warmth shot up her arm. Her body relaxed, petting the ground like a furry companion. That, began the doctor, would be what remains of a tear in temple fabric, where husks tend to come from. I think I had this at home. She turned back to him. Did the husk kidnap me? As horrible as it sounds, that would have been better. Gemma shot to her feet. Pardon? At least you then have a better sense of self. She went to slap him, but the doctor sidestepped it, continuing on without breaking in tone. I'm sorry, Gemma. You have every right to be upset. Stop talking. How can you say I would be better off kidnapped? You aren't, Gemma. He took a slap in the face without a flinch. Miss Steele, Reverend Stone, Duchess Slate. That is just my name. Stop saying it and tell me what is going on. The doctor sighed grimly. He plucked a bronze rod from his coat pocket and pressed a button. Its buzz sent a shiver down Gemma's spine. Her hand began to shift, its shape changing like flickering static. The doctor switched the device off. Gemma stared at her hand, watching while its form calmed down to return back to something that matched the rest of her body. What did you do to me? I interrupted your psychic frequency for just a moment. It's not difficult when your body is unstable. Your memory may not come back to you, but I need to tell you the truth. There was a husk in the forest. Up until very recently, in fact. How long? If I was to make a guess, I'd say a little before we met. Gemma took a step away from him. What are you saying? That husk had been here so long that it became a landmark of this world. The problem with existing for so long is that the husk lost sight of who it was. It became an amalgamation of its victims. Gemma stared off into the forest depths. Images of centuries worth of hunts flashed before her eyes. Trees changed. Rain swept across the forest floor, with the sun breaking through what clouds it could, with sparse rays of lightning striking the clearing. Then what happened? Gemma lifted her head up, letting the water cool her face. After it realized its true self? Hard to say. Some people think the husk went back to where it was born, while others like to think it stabilized, making a new identity for itself. What do you think? Oh, I'm just the narrator of this tale, Gemma. At the end of the day, you were writing the story. Gemma lunged at the doctor. She held his collar tight, scowling at his blank expression. Her fingers tore into the cloth. The doctor did little more than let out a sigh and wait. Gemma envisioned ripping into him more. An image of the doctor stepping out of a large blue box slammed into her senses, pushing her away. What was that? The doctor straightened his collar. That would be you subconsciously trying to get into my head. Time Lord minds make trickier prey, I'm afraid. Gemma steadied herself. Could you help me? I was sent here to get rid of the husk. That is exactly what I intend to do. The rain slowed. Gemma took it in, Closing her eyes let the soft pattering sounds engulf her. A buzz in front of her shook her body. She shivered. Her head span as the buzzing muffled the rest of her senses. Her face grew numb to the crisp air until consciousness slipped from her. The buzz fell silent. Gemma felt at home in numbness until the doctor's words floated into her thoughts. Don't fret, Gemma Steele. You'll be awake in time. Your form and mind will be stabilizing, and this will soon be a bad dream. I don't understand. A common issue with people. I'm taking you to Earth for a new life. I said I was tasked with getting rid of the husk in the forest. That is exactly what I'm doing. You'll be essentially human, free to live a life of your own. His voice drifted into the background, a typhoon of colours swirling in her mind, taking Gemma into a dream that picked away memories of the forest. Do me a favour, Gemma. Make it a good one. She clung to the words as much as she could, but they fell into nothingness with the rest of the forest. Gemma Steele awoke to a bright light above. Busying footsteps fluttered around her. The curtain that surrounded her bed pulled back to let a man walk up to her bedside. He plucked the chart on a small table. Let's see now, Gemma, how are you feeling? She tried to focus on his features to no avail. Her gaze went beyond him to the hints of activity behind the curtains. I'm feeling alright. So, Miss Steele, she corrected. He grinned. My apologies. You'll just be under observation for today, and then you can go home. Where is that? There's been arrangements made for you. Gemma paused. Am I married? We didn't find a spouse on file, but the day is still young. I haven't dated for a while myself, so I'm not one for advice. Gemma chuckled. Miss Steele, what do you remember? Nothing, she answered joyously. I'm so sorry. I don't think you need to be. I feel good. She relaxed back against her pillow. Gemma licked her lips, tasting the coolness of raindrops at the edge of her smile. I'll be just fine.